are not your thoughts. You know, all that chatter, all of those stories that you tell yourself about yourself, all the things that you're catastrophizing about the future, all the regrets that you have of the past, or all that ruminating that you're doing, guess what? That's not you. It's simply your brain doing what it's designed to do, and it's also doing what you've trained it to do. You see, our brains get trained to think in certain patterns, and the great news is we can also train them to think in a more positive and hopeful pattern. But it all starts with realizing that you are not your thoughts, you're the one who's aware of your thoughts. Hello everybody, and welcome to this Friday episode of the Permission to Love podcast. I'm Jerry. I'm a Master Certified Mindset Coach, host of the Permission to Love podcast, author and speaker, and I'm so grateful that you took time out of your busy schedule to be here today and to invest in transforming your mindset. Now today I want to talk about something that actually completely transformed my life, completely changed the way that I thought or the way that I viewed my thoughts, and allowed me to move from limiting beliefs to a growth mindset, to see that I had power over my thoughts and my thoughts didn't have to have power over me. And what was this insight? What was so transformational for me? It's the simple but profound truth that I am not my thoughts, that you are not your thoughts. I remember when I first heard that phrase or that concept, it was while I was on my 2-year nomadic journey. I was driving across the U.S. and I was listening to an audiobook. And the book I was listening to is Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. And as I was listening to it, I remember the moment when he said those words, "You are not your thoughts." And the reason that was so profound for me was because my entire life I had believed that I was my thoughts. I believed that because I thought something, it was true. I believed that that voice that was inside of my head telling me all of those negative things about myself, catastrophizing my future, ruminating and regretting about my past was me. But when I heard those words in that moment, it allowed me to shift my entire mindset. It allowed me to see that I'm not my thoughts. I'm the one who's aware of those thoughts. And why is that such good news, and why is that an important part of transforming our mindset? Because for many people, they believe that they are their thoughts. They believe that they're stuck with the thinking patterns that they have. And they believe that those thoughts are true based off of their experience in life, based off of the belief that because they're thinking something about themselves, it must be true. But let me encourage you, you are not your thoughts. And the realization that you're not your thoughts, that you are the witness, the observer, or the one who is aware of your thoughts can transform your life, and it can empower you to move away from a negative fixed mindset, a mindset that has kept you trapped, a mindset that has kept you believing that you're not enough, you'll never be enough, that you're broken, that there's something fundamentally wrong with you, that won't allow you to forgive yourself, that won't allow you to see the beautiful opportunities that you have in life because you're limited by that voice, by that narrative that's going on in your head, and you believe it. And the reason so many people believe it is because they're overly identified with their thoughts. You see, we're in there all the time chattering. That's what our brain does. Our brain thinks. That's its job. Our brain also solves problems. And if there's not a problem to solve, guess what? The brain will create a problem for it to start working on. And the number one job of your brain, right, is to keep you safe. And so if you're up there ruminating, catastrophizing, thinking all these negative things about yourself, it is your brain's attempt to try to keep you safe, to try to find out what's wrong with you so that you can change. That was often a coping mechanism that I've talked about in other episodes that was developed in childhood or in toxic relationships to try to keep us safe. That if I just figure out what's wrong with me, then I could change it. And if I can change it, then I'll be safe. And that's what it is. But the challenge is, because we hear that voice, because we hear that narrative, and it's with us 24/7 chattering, we begin to think that that's us. And we become very familiar with the narrative that is there. You know, there's a saying, If you tell a lie long enough, people will begin to believe it. It's the same thing with us. When we're up there with all those stories and we're lying about ourselves, telling us all those things that are so negative about us, how our life is never going to change, that our situation is hopeless, it's uniquely worse than anybody else's. You see, we say that enough, we're going to begin to believe it. We're not just going to believe it, we're going to identify with it. We're going to believe that that's us. We're going to believe that that's who we are. So a key part of changing your mindset, letting go of those toxic thoughts, quieting that inner critic, letting go of those beliefs and moving towards beliefs that are more hopeful, that allow you to see that you can change, that you can have the life that you want to live regardless of what your past is, regardless of what your current situation is. When you see that it is just thoughts that you're witnessing, observing, attaching to, giving weight and credibility to, when you see that that's what's happening, it can then empower you to move towards more hopeful thoughts. Who would you be without the narrative that there's something wrong with you? Who would you be without the voice that's in there beating you up? Well, I want to let you know you can be free from feeling like your thoughts control you, that your thoughts are truth, that your thoughts are the reality. You can move away from that and begin to identify with that part of you who's aware that you're thinking those thoughts. So today I want to encourage you and I want to remind you, you are not your thoughts. You are the observer of your thoughts. And when we realize this and we unlock that truth, it gives us the power to reshape our mindset and to live with a greater sense of peace and clarity. If you're struggling with things like the imposter syndrome, feeling like you're not enough, or that you're uniquely broken, or that you can never change, I want to encourage you. Those are thinking patterns. They're limiting beliefs, and they come from our mindset. Our mindset is the beliefs that we hold, the way that we see the world, the way that we see ourselves. And the great thing about a mindset is that you can change it. And now I want to ask you a question. What would life be like for you if you didn't have those belief systems? Just take a moment and imagine that. Connect with it. Who would you be without the belief that you're an imposter, without the belief that you're not enough, without the belief that you have to do all of these things to be loved and accepted? Who would you be? Well, the good news is you can become that, and you do it by transforming your mindset. So if you're ready to let go of those limiting beliefs, transform your mindset, and create the life that you actually want to live, I want to encourage you to apply for my new one-on-one coaching program called Mindset Mastery. It's a 12-week program that I created to help you transform your mindset, to move you from those limiting beliefs that are keeping you stuck towards a growth mindset, an expansive mindset. Over the 12 weeks, we'll work together to help you create a clear and compelling vision for your life, to develop a healthy and self-compassionate relationship with yourself, identify and transform those limiting beliefs, develop a growth mindset, and most importantly, you'll have a partner on your journey. You don't have to do this alone. So if you're serious about transforming your mindset and letting go of those limiting beliefs that got you stuck and you feel like you can't move forward, then I want to encourage you to check out the show notes in this episode or go to my website at jerryhenderson.org/mindset and apply for the program. And to celebrate the launch of this new coaching program, I'm offering $500 off the program to the listeners of this podcast. So when you apply, just simply note that you heard about the coaching program from the podcast. So don't wait any longer. Don't hesitate. Don't talk yourself out of it. Because remember, the most important relationship you have in your life is the one that you have with yourself. And it's time for you to show up for you like you've been showing up for everybody else. So let me just quickly move through a few key thoughts here today. Number one, thoughts are not facts. They are just mental events that are happening. They are not facts. Dr. Daniel Siegel, a clinical professor of psychology, describes this awareness of our thinking as not being facts. He describes it as mindsight, having the ability to perceive our thoughts and our emotions from a distance. He says that mindsight allows us to step back and observe the workings of our mind without getting wrapped up or caught up in them. And as we practice this Mindsight, we can begin to realize that our thoughts are not facts. They are temporary events that are happening. They're going to come, they're going to go. And here's something that's really important to remember. They're often bias-based on past experiences and emotions. And so I want to encourage you to remember, when you're in that moment, when you're spiraling, when you're catastrophizing, when you're ruminating, when you're regretting, whatever it is, remember, your thoughts are not facts. They are mental activity, and they've gotten used to a certain way of thinking. You've habituated negative thinking patterns. And guess what? You can then habituate positive thinking patterns. You can move to a place where you believe that you're worthy of love. You can move to a place where you believe that you're worthy of abundance and beautiful relationships. And one of the places that you can start is to realize that the thoughts that you're thinking are not facts. Now, the second thing that can help you get free from the feeling that you are your thoughts is the power of detachment. And not an unhealthy detachment, but a very healthy detaching from our thoughts. And the basic thought behind this practice is, when you notice yourself getting into a negative thinking pattern, is to interrupt it by simply observing it, to separate yourself from the thought and just begin to watch it. Just begin to listen to it and don't get emotionally attached to it. Now, I know this can sound hard, but believe me, it is possible. You can get to the place where when that thought comes up, that you mindfully just begin to observe it, listen to it, and don't emotionally attach to it. You see, it's the emotional attachment to the thoughts that really causes us to go into that downward spiral. We have a thought, we get emotionally connected to it, we begin to believe it, we begin to repeat it, we get more emotionally connected to it, and that's how that addiction and that wiring begins to happen. Because remember, the thought with emotion, a very powerful way to wire a thought in your head in the negative, but it also works in the positive, okay? And as you observe the thought, you can move on to the third thing that can help you, and that's becoming curious about the thought. Why is it there? How is it serving you? What is it doing for you? Why does the thought arise in the first place? And practicing curiosity can be a very powerful tool in letting go of negative thoughts, because it changes the energy from trying to suppress the thought, from shaming ourselves for having the thought, to actually becoming curious. And then often that practice of curiosity will lead you to understanding why that limiting belief is there, what it's trying to do for you, and then you can get that need met in a more healthy way. You see, that's one of the powerful things that curiosity can do, is it can shift you into self-compassion. It can shift you into understanding yourself and how those thoughts are serving you. But as long as we stay so wrapped up in believing that our thoughts are facts, that they are us, and that we can't change them, that our thoughts have power over us versus us having power over them, we're going to stay trapped in a cycle of negative thinking, and that negative thinking is going to create a negative or limiting mindset. And remember, our mindset is the way that we observe this world. It's the filter that we see ourselves through, others through, and this entire world through. So one of the big key breakthroughs for people in changing their mindset is understanding that they're not their thoughts. It's creating some space from them and that thinking. Now, if you need something that can help remind you that you're not your thoughts, you can do something as simple as tying a string around your wrist or putting a note on your phone. Having a reminder around can be a very powerful tool to disrupt that type of thinking, then allow you to observe it, and then move into curiosity, and then move into self-compassion. Now, if you enjoyed this episode, I want to encourage you, take a moment to subscribe or to follow the podcast, because that's going to keep you updated on when new episodes come out. And also, if you know somebody who could really benefit from the content of this episode or other episodes, I want to encourage you to share it with them, because you never know the difference that it can make in their life. Now, if you need more resources to help you on your journey, I want to remind you, as always, that you can go to my website at jerryhenderson.org, or you can simply see the show notes in this episode. Well, thank you for joining this episode, and I want to remind you that the most important relationship you have is the one that you have with yourself. So be kind to yourself.